Hello and welcome back to another video in our series where we are going through the installation process of SQL Server 2017 at the moment. But basically this will work for 2019 as well. We're on the piece where we're going to be installing SQL Server reporting services. Now what's really interesting is at this juncture, actually in this video, there potentially could be two paths that can be taken. Now we're going to be going through the traditional part of the Microsoft Business Intelligence stack, and we're going to be installing SSRS report server, specifically 2017. But there's another actual offering that will deliver us some additional features, right? This is known as a superset of features for reporting services, and it's called the Power BI report server. So any of you out there that are just loving your Power BI reports and you are looking for an on-prem solution, you've probably already heard about the Power BI report server, but basically this would replace your SSRS report server. Now that being said, you could have them both installed, but this I've seen can cause a little bit of confusion because the Power BI report server allows for all of your SSRS paginated reports as well as your actual Power BI. So if you did want to isolate and segregate these two, then you could. It's really meant to work cohesively together so you can have all your reports in one location. And what easier path is there for your end users if you have one central stop, all of your reporting needs. That's the purpose behind it. But in this video, we're not going to go through the Power BI report server installation process. We're going through the SSRS report server, but it effectively is the same thing. So as you go through this video and you say, you know what, I'm going to end up installing Power BI report server, I'll show you where you can download it. When you go through the installation process, it will look eerily familiar. Well, let's get on with the show. Let's actually go through the process. Let's download our SSRS installer, the report server installer, and go through it because we are going to need to configure the server as well. So let's head over to our File Explorer and launch that SQL Server Installation Center and get the download. See you over there. So here we are in the File Explorer. Once again, don't worry if you don't have all the files that match up. I'm just in my downloads. I've gone ahead and downloaded everything. When you're done through this entire series, you will have all of the items. So we need to go to our SQL Server Installation Center, which as we know is located if we go into the C drive under SQL Server 2017, Developer, and it's right here under Setup. Right, this is the default location. But we did this in the last video, so hopefully it's familiar. And then we get our installation center. And just like before, we can go through this process. There's a lot of features that are built into this. Bring this up right here. There we go. We have done the top two in the last two videos, but now we're going to this one, installing SQL Server reporting services. We're going to install the server. This link, as you can see, it requires an internet connection because it just brings us to the Microsoft Store link where we can download this. So definitely start this download process now. We're going to be using this in a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and open up a second browser so I can show you the Power BI report server. Right, just gonna type that in. Top link here. It just brings us to the main page, and you can just hit download free trial or advanced. This gets you right to the basically mimicked version within the store. But as you can see in the name, it's the Power BI report server. And as the time of this recording, the May 2019 is the most recent version. Just in case, they are scheduling one for October 2019. It's said that every January, May, and October will be the cadence, the release cycle for these updates. So if you want, you could download this here too. But remember, we're not going to go through that installer. We're going to be going through this one. So hopefully you've gone ahead and gotten the reporting services installer downloaded. If not, you can always pause the video and we're going to go through and run this. I'm going to minimize the installation center, go back to my downloads and find my reporting services installer. So we'll go ahead and double click this, let the installer open up, and you're going to see it's pretty simple in the way of options. All you can choose and click on is install reporting services. We do need to make a small decision here, but as mentioned, right? We installed the developer version of SQL Server, which was our ASIS, our database instance, all that fun stuff. So here we're going to choose the same option, developer, because remember, we're going to use this for learning purposes. It's for the classes. It's for this instruction that we're doing. And it follows the same end user license agreement. It's not meant for production usage. So just keep that in mind. And that's reiterated when we hit next. We can see it's the end user license agreement. I'm going to go ahead and hit the box here to accept the terms, hit next. And we're left with what seems to be a radial selection, but there's only one choice. The only reason why this is almost nostalgic is in the past, you would actually have two choices here. You could install reporting services only, and you then manually configure it, or you could do an install and configure when it was part of the main SQL Server wizard, that main install that we did in the first video. What's no longer there since now it's a separate install. We need to go through and actually specify what is the database instance that we're going to be connecting to and creating our report server database. So we're going to have to go through and manually configure it. So even though it's set as a radial option to make choices, we don't have one. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next, leave the default install location, just hit OK here. And it's not that long of an install. It's going to be fairly quick that we can go through this process. And we're going to be presented, depending on the scenario, depending when you last restarted your machine, you might have an additional option here. We're going to see when this is done. We're going to go through the configure server option. But some of you, if you haven't restarted in a little bit, depending on what was installed as part of this process, it may require you to restart, it says. You can actually still go through the configuration process. So follow along with me. You don't have to restart right now. We're going to hit this configure report server. And just so you know, this is actually launching a newly installed application. So this is the report server configuration manager, which it's up on my other screen, but I'm prompted for this. They say, what instance do you want to connect to? We only have the one. And it gives us this report server configuration manager. So if you hit Windows and you search for this is an application you can always launch. And you will, because we're going to go through the basics of what needs to be configured for our report server to be standing and working. All right. There are additional items here that you're probably going to adjust and amend for your organizational needs. So here we can see is the main overview, the status, and what we're missing is the report server database name. It's not there, neither is the server mode. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move down the line. We're not going to go through everything here, but as you can see, the service account, we're going to leave it as the default virtual service, but you have the choice of setting a domain service account. You can use the network account that's built in. So choices, right? This is the first one we do need to configure. Basically, it's populated all these default options, but you can change it if you want to change your virtual directory name, IP address, if you want to specify something, port numbers, all this you can change to your needs. I'm going to leave the default and just hit apply. You'll see down below in the results is effectively kind of like just a section where it's showing the progress. So it's going through, it's now creating the virtual directory. We're going to see a check mark on that. It's basically reserving port 80, so on and so forth. It has completed successfully. This is our web service URL. And then we can go to the next step, the database. So there's going to be also here a couple of choices when we hit change database. We can see that we have the choice of creating a new report server database, which is what we're going to decide on because we're installing a fresh instance, right? We don't have anything else. But if you're going along with this, maybe you're just coming here to figure out how to install SQL Server 2017 and you have a reporting database already that has some items, you can simply point to that server and point to that respective database. But we're going to be creating brand new ones. So I'm going to leave this radio button selected, hit next. I'm going to leave. So now, well, where do you want to install this? What SQL Server database engine do you want to create these databases on? We're going to use the one we created before, basically the MS SQL Server, the default instance, right? I could do localhost, local. Here we're just putting the name of the machine. And we know test connection is going to work because we made our user the admin of this. So we're good there. And then what do you want to name the report database? I'm going to leave it as report server, and it's going to create a report server temp as well. So I'm just going to leave the defaults. I'm also going to say use the default service account here. So I'm going to let that go. And into summary, and then next, and finish. It's very quick here. It's going through this process. It's just creating those database scripts. When we install our SQL Server Management Studio and we connect to our SQL Server database engine, we'll see these databases in there now. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. And I only need to do 2 more steps. So that's been configured. Now the front side, we need to create a web portal URL. Once again, the defaults are in here. All I need to do is hit apply. It's going to go through, waiting for responses, and we're solid. And really the last thing, because we don't need to do anything for email right now. If you want, you can set this up. You can also set some items up for execution account. These are an unattended execution account. But the thing we do need to finish, so the last thing that is required to get this going is the backup keys. This is meant for disaster recovery. So if there's any sort of issues, this is a file that lets you effectively upload this, restore it. So when you go through this restore process, you'll need to point to this file. It's a key. So we're going to hit backup. All it does is go to a file location. I'm going to go here. I actually have one already. I'm just going to overwrite it. So I'm just going to click it, but you can just add, make a name and then hit save. And then you also need to include a password. So that's what I'm going to do here. So this is a file that you want to maintain and keep safe so that when the time comes that for any reason, if there's your system goes down, you have these backed up and now you're going to restore it on a different server, you're going to need this file and of course the password to decrypt it. So all set, created encryption backup, all done. So this is all taken care of. If we go back to the overview, we can see we've got everything, the services started, we're good to go. So I'm going to hit exit and I'm going to launch a browser. So pick your browser of choice. And if everyone's followed along, we can do this. So all we're going to do is actually use the web portal URL. So for us, I can either do video2, right? That's the name of my machine, /reports. If you put a named instance, you want to put the name of your instance / reports. Oh, got to put it up here. 1 second. Let me do localhost / reports. That should get us going. Oh, it's actually the / that was an issue. But localhost worked for me. Like I said, if you did not choose the default instance, you just have to put whatever you named your server. So this is SQL Server Reporting Services. If you are doing the Power BI report server, you'll see that the icon in the upper left just switches to yellow and black, the Power BI icon. Effectively, that's it, other than some underlying features for Power BI itself. But we have now gone through the process and installed our SSRS report server. Just remember, for any of those who maybe had the restart pop-up at the end of the initial installation, now would be the right time. Restart it to make sure everything is configured correctly. But we have a report server that's ready and available to receive SSRS paginated reports, ready to go. So hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.